she looked at me and said, why are you doing this? What is your motivation? Why did you bring me into this program? Why did you tell me, yes, I can do this? She said, I've never trusted anybody that just does that. She finally said no to what she'd been doing. And God gave her a yes. And I said, the only reason I'm doing this is because God called me to do this. I don't know how else to explain it.
Welcome, you guys, to the podcast. We're so excited about you being here. When Leslie and I were talking about guests to invite and who we would want to talk to, you both came to our minds. So we're here today interviewing DiAnn from Midland Fairhavens and Joey from Midland Habitat for Humanity. And so we are excited about you being here. And we're here really just to learn about each of your organizations, a little so information for the community. Maybe they haven't heard who you are, what you do, but honestly, we really want to just get to the heart of who you guys are as well. We know that each of you have stories that have brought you to this place and of leadership and in caring for our community and giving back. And then just we also want to talk about how to empower and inspire our community. We know that there's lots of ways for people to give with donations, with time, with different things. And so we just want to make that available for people so they know about you guys and your organizations. And so I'm going to start with DiAnn. Just share a little bit about the background of who you are as executive director, but also with just your organization. And tell us just a little bit of the history of how you guys got started. What was it like for you when you knew you wanted to do something? And how did that turn into Midland Fairhavens?
Well, Midland Fairhaven started about 26 years ago out of a needs assessment and gaps analysis done in the community with the City of Midland and United Way, and just identifying that needs for single moms and children were one of the top priorities of the community. That was a gap. And we had emergency housing being taken care of with some wonderful organizations here. We had permanent housing being taken care of with other wonderful organizations, one being yours. And there wasn't a bridge from being literally homeless or in your car to being able to sustain yourself. And so that's where the idea of Midland Fairhavens came in. We are what's called transitional housing. And that just essentially means you're transitioning, you're learning the life skills you need, the job skills, boundaries, healthy tools in your toolbox so that you're able to self-sustain and self-govern. And we started in a house with 4 bedrooms and my office over on Andrews Highway next to Golf Course Road, Church of Christ. We had 4 families within weeks, and then people began to donate other possibilities for housing. We had a duplex, used both sides of that, and a house in addition. So I had scattered sites. I was the only staff for the first few years. And so lots of volunteers. As you know, volunteers are critically important to any ministry, and couldn't have done it without the volunteers. They were the ones that mentored um, and walked alongside of these families as they came in to the program. And then within a few years, we knew we needed to find a place to build and hire more staff. And God has just ordained such an amazing journey for us. And we're just so grateful to be where we are today.
It's good. So what was it like for you personally? How did you were a part of this gap analysis study or had information about the need in the community, but what led you to say, I want to be a part of that? Was there someone in your life that had mentored you, impacted you? Where did that passion come from?
I think it came naturally and in the culture of my family that I grew up in. My parents were missionaries overseas, and I didn't know any better than just to, be in that role of
Say yes.
serving. Mhm. Yes, say yes.
Say
How
yes.
to say no, which is not always a good thing either. I had to learn later in life that no is okay. Um, and then raising my own children, we had that culture. And I observe now as adults, they're living out that same spirit, which I love. And now with my husband, we continue that
Yeah.
spirit. Although I have to say, when I moved to Midland, I had absolutely no interest in going back into social work. I'd worked social work most of my adult life, and I really did not want to do that anymore. And yet God had another plan. So this group that had identified this need asked me if I'd help get it started. I'd had a history of helping
Mhm.
programs some and raising money and helping get the legal things started and such and writing the program. I said, sure, I will help you get started. And here we are 26 years later.
26 years later.
And it just works. And it's humbling and such a joy to be a part of something that God is doing, and you're just a small part of watching him
Mm.
flesh this out. And that's, I guess, why I'm still there,
Yeah, I
just
love
to
that.
see the changes in lives and breaking generational cycles, and not just a little fix here and there, but truly
Mm.
making eternal differences in
Yeah,
lives. So I'm still there
good.
and I'm loving it
So
for
tell
now,
us just
today.
yeah, no, I love it. So tell us just a little bit about um the client who's coming in, who um what situation possibly, might they be in to find Midland Fairhavens? How would they know if they qualify, or do you have an application process for people wanting to learn about or to be able to have a place to live?
We do have an application process, and there's essentially three parts of the program. And people can inquire online, they can call in, set an appointment. Um, the residential part is what we started with, and we still continue. The strongest, most intense part of the program is that residential. It's kind of the intensive care, if you will, where we really are helping a family make really intentional changes in their lives, where they've come and they've said, I'm living in my car, I've been living with an abusive relationship for years, or whatever it is, and clearly it's not working. I need some help. So that's the residential part. They are required to attend life skills classes, which cover things like budgeting and parenting and boundaries and multiple life tools, and equip them to be able to go back out and do this differently. The second part of the program is non-residential, and that's families who will call in or fill in an application on our website that just states they need help with rent or utilities to prevent eviction or termination of their services. With that, we always talk through what caused this to get to this point so that we can help prevent that from happening again and again. We don't want to just perpetuate and enable the revolving door. We want to be able to help find solutions with a person and pray with them.
I love
So that's the second part. Of course, a lot of the families that call in don't just need us, they need other programs. And so that's where we do a lot of networking
Mhm.
with our partner agencies in the community. And then some of them end up being residential clients eventually. If we find that they really, what they need is more than just a month's rent. The third part of the program is our parenting skills, and we'd love to get that out in the community more. We've partnered with Child Protective Services.
Mhm.
That started right at the end of COVID. There were so many children misplaced from homes due to the stress and neglect and abuse. And courts needed another source of parenting skills classes so that children could be replaced, put back in their homes. And so we stepped up and said, we're already teaching parenting. We can just broaden this class to help more in the community. So we do it in English, we've done it in Spanish, we've done it in sign language, which was really a neat opportunity. We've done it during the day and in the evenings at our location. at other locations, and we've done it remotely for out, the counties in the area.
That
So that's been an exciting part of the program too, because that is not just limited to single moms, but um, parents, dads, um, men who perhaps have just gotten out of prison and they need to be able to see their children again. There's just all levels of reasons to do a parenting class. And I would love for this to just broaden more into the community because we are seeing parenting's just harder. It is
I
so
yeah.
much harder. There
Right.
are so many challenges that I didn't deal with.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing my own four children as they're raising their children. There's just layers of challenges that we did not have. So,
Yeah.
just like anything else, you need an instruction book. You don't just open your engine in the car and start working with it. Well, we act like we can do that with children.
Right.
We all need more instructions. And so we're really excited about this and would love to broaden this more in the community. We've done the classes in some churches. We've been asked to go and present there. So, and people are finding us online and signing up to come. So
Mhm.
there's no limitation to who can come to these classes. So
Love it.
anyway, and we have a
Yeah.
great presenter. She's fabulous on our staff. So, and we've had several volunteers and other people come to help.
Good.
So I get
Thank
excited about it. Can you
I
tell?
love it. I love it. And I think it's just very it's just shows the community that you want to have for these people. I
Hmm.
completely agree on the parenting. It it's kind of like when that first child comes out, you're like, "Oh, I'm supposed to figure this out,"
Right.
And it's hard. And
Yes.
even in today's culture and the challenges that we have, I think anybody that's raising a child now, it's so important to have advocates in your life and instruction and
Yes.
helpful tips and all kinds
Yes.
of things. So I love it that you've expanded that program to
Hmm.
serve the community. So
And what I hear you saying that was just kept coming to mind over and over when you were talking is that you are really living out teaching a man to fish
Yes.
versus
100%.
giving them a fish, that old
Yes.
saying. So I
Good way to
hear
say
you
it.
and I feel that passion as you're talking about that
Yes.
you're really helping them be equipped to be able to not find themselves in this cycle of
Mm.
destruction over and over. And then hopefully because of that, these kids' legacies are going to be changed, that then
Correct.
their kids are not going to be a product of falling into this same
Mhm.
cycle
Mhm.
of unhealth and just
Mhm.
brokenness. So that's why
Mhm.
the whole time I was like, she's teaching a man to fish or a woman, but teaching
Yes.
a human to fish
Yes.
instead of just giving them a fish for a day. So
Yes.
good job, Diane.
thank you.
You.
So you touched a little bit upon just the collaboration and the partnerships in the community. And that was one of the reasons I think that it's my understanding that Midland Fairhavens works a lot with Midland Habitat for Humanity and providing kind of that next step for families. And so, Joey, we'd love to learn more about your role in that at Midland Habitat and share with us more about what you do, maybe break down some of those assumptions that people have about Habitat for Humanity, who it helps, what you're there to do,
All the things.
all the things.
Okay.
And how I can get a free house.
Absolutely. That's all we do. We just give them away.
Give me a
That was
free
one of
Yes.
the options.
Absolutely. We hear that a lot. So Habitat's pretty unique. I have really enjoyed being there because like Diane's program, it's an opportunity for people to help themselves. It's not a handout. They work really, really hard for the opportunity. So we operate a program where people can buy their own house. What sets us apart, which makes us a nonprofit, is they're at cost and we issue our own mortgages. So we're a mortgage company. So there's 0% interest mortgages. So over the life of the note, they save a ton of money. These houses are really affordable. And most of the time, after people finish the program and move in, they're generally saving money on what they would be paying in market rate rent. It's expensive to live here, and so that's basically how we help people. Our mission is changing lives through affordable home ownership, and I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but
No.
the transformation component, which is why we work together, because y'all are the same. We want to help people be the best versions of themselves. We do that through a house. And when you think of your house, most people have these really positive thoughts, right? You think of family get-togethers and socializing and the security. Um, what we find is a lot of people don't actually have that, right? They have pretty broken pasts and situations that they've come through. And so a house represents to them hope. It's the hope of something different. And so we love Fair Havens because Fair Havens is transitional. It's not permanent. Habitat's permanent. And so the way that works is they meet people where they are. They give them what they need. They give them the tools and kind of coach them to to get to a different spot in life. In general, since we're selling the house, it's a mortgage program. So if someone is homeless or if someone is in the thick of crisis, they're probably not really ready for a program.
Yeah.
They need someone else's help to walk them through, get a little bit further, and then they're ready. And so that's where Fair Havens comes in. And we've seen that many times. We have some really cool stories of people that we've worked with. And the stories that they came into Fair Havens with, why they were there. Um, it's very convicting. Sorry.
I love it.
Um, so that's why we do what we do. Um, when you get to see um, the other side of what that looks like, the fruit of your labor in some ways, it's so fulfilling. It is so much fun. My background isn't in nonprofit work. I came to this job a few years ago. I was in oil and gas and I loved what I did. I love the people I worked with. And I had zero desire to ever run a nonprofit. It was just not in the cards for me, but as it turns out, it actually was. And so this has been some of the most fulfilling work to help people help themselves and turn their lives around. And for Habitat, we do that through housing.
I love that. Thank you for sharing just your heart with us because both of you, um, it's just so meaningful, I think, for people to hear the stories of people that are behind the scenes. You know, a lot of times when you're in an organization, people can have assumptions about the leadership or they can have assumptions about what happens there. But to actually hear the stories of this is how I got here. This is how it affects me. It gives me joy to be able to empower other people to live successful and meaningful lives and to be transformed. And so I love that, you know, both of you bring such a heart behind that. And so just thanks for sharing that. Um, when you think about like how long has Habitat been going on in Midland? And how long have you been there? A few years?
So I joined in 2018. So I
Okay.
think that's going on 7
Yeah,
years.
7 years.
Midland Habitat started in 1991, and it was started by a few individuals in town. It was started through a church, and they just cared about people. They got that housing was a component to that, and so it was a volunteer organization for a season. And as you can imagine, building homes and issuing mortgages and servicing mortgages with volunteers is a tricky model.
Yeah.
And so eventually they hired my predecessor, who was their first employee and executive director. And she did a wonderful job growing it from a small volunteer organization to, an actual entity with staff and policies and procedures. And she did a great job suiting the need and grew it. And she was there, I think, almost 20 years, right?
So,
DiAnn and her worked some together. Um, and so I got to come in to a really good position. It wasn't a crisis. It wasn't anything bad. And so I've had the privilege to grow it. I think in that amount of time, the need here has gotten so much more. Housing has not gone down. Interest rates have gone up. And what we find is there are a lot of working folks in the Permian Basin who work very hard and cannot afford the average price home. And the challenge is they're doing the jobs that we all need. They're teachers. They're people that work at the college, at the hospital. They're doing all the jobs that keep the lights on in the Permian Basin. They just can't afford a house, and so that's where we come in.
So tell us a little bit about that, how you are able to offer this at cost, because I think that might be something that people are like, well, how does that happen? And I know it's probably multifaceted, but share a little bit about what plays into that to be able to provide a house.
That is a great question. So we kind of say we're this engine. We're this machine. We have all these random parts and separate from each other. They don't make sense, but together they do. So we're a development company. So we are actually putting in the roads and the water and the infrastructure. We have subdivisions that we're actually building out. That's where we build. And so we have that. We have our own construction team that oversees all these houses. We certainly use volunteers. We need volunteers, but volunteers still have to build the code, and so we have to have actual staff to oversee that. We have our mortgage side, and so we have our own mortgage company that issues the loans. As it turns out, banks don't want to issue 0% interest loans.
Really?
We don't blame them for that. Doesn't make sense. So we have to raise money to issue those loans. That's how we make that happen. We're super fortunate to be able to cover our overhead through the proceeds from our store downtown. So we have a store downtown. We take donations of furniture, building supplies. And a lot of people don't really get that the store isn't for Habitat homeowners. It's for everybody. Everybody can shop there. And basically, the more we sell, the more houses we build. And so we have all these random parts, and someone way smarter than me put them all together. But we get to do this really cool thing. Over the life of a note, we probably save people $200,000 or $300,000 in interest and at the sales cost, which in turn gets a lot more people in homes that they own.
So if there's somebody from the community that says, well, how do I can I get a home? Does my family qualify? I know that there's probably referrals from different agencies when you think about Fairhaven's being one of those, but and probably other people in the community. But how do people find out if they can even qualify?
So everything's on our website.
Okay.
Obviously, you can call our office and talk to someone, and we can walk you through it. But our program is income based, so we serve people who make 30 to 60% of the average income in Midland. And so we have those numbers. It changes every year, but we have them on our website. But basically, we have an apply button on our website, and so we have a pre-application that's kind of quick and easy, and you can fill it out. And if for some reason someone doesn't qualify for our program, we want to get you qualified. We have resources that we can connect you to. If this isn't a good fit, or if you're in crisis and you actually need something way better, we've got Fair Havens and entities who can help you where you are, like in that point. So our website kind of has it all. And if of course, we're happy to answer any questions. If anybody needs help, just call our office.
Yeah.
I have a question to piggyback on your question. So DiAnn's organization helps with single moms, but does it have to be a single mom? Can it be a whole family unit? Could it be a single male? Is there any like stipulation other than the income?
So
That
yeah, we want to serve everybody. So
okay.
it's income based. We have a credit score minimum, which is 550. And then really one of the biggest components of our program is the sweat equity component. So that's like an actual habitat term. So our homeowners help build their houses and other people's houses. And so you have to be willing to do that. And it's challenging. It takes time. You've got to really budget. We have a home buyer education class that's part of that. So like DiAnn's program, we want to holistically help people. We too see parenting as a really, really big deal. Our folks and probably your folks, sometimes they're working two jobs to keep everything working, but we don't think about that. That's taking them away from their family. And so a lot of times they need help, you know, being the best version of themselves, being the best parent. Um, so I forgot where we were going with that.
I was just wondering if it
Yeah.
had to be like
Okay.
single moms or
So anybody can apply, and so as long as they fit the qualifications, yes, we do a background check. So as long as you're not a
Yeah.
convicted felon. We build neighborhoods of safe, stable folks. Then anybody can apply.
That's awesome.
So tell us a little bit about the sweat equity. I've been a part of builds before, and I am not a construction worker whatsoever. I can hang pictures on a wall, but tell me, and I can paint,
Okay,
but
that's good.
tell us, do you have qualifications of volunteers? I mean, kind of twofold, because you've got homeowners that are building that sweat equity, but then
Mhm.
you've also got volunteers in the community that can come in and help support that process. So,
Absolutely.
do we need skills?
You do not need skills.
Okay.
You need to be able to listen, and we've got our staff that'll walk people through things. Um, almost everybody, I'm trying to think, almost everybody that comes to our work site is there to help. A lot of times they're there with their companies, and so it's a team from a company or a church or some organization, and so they're there to have a good time, help people. Basically, by having volunteers on the work site, it saves construction costs. It's super expensive to do what we do in Midland, and it's always getting more expensive. And so, by having volunteers help us, it keeps it cheaper, and then we pass that on to homeowners, so our houses are more affordable. So, we got you. You don't have to have
Okay.
skills.
Okay. How many houses have you we're in 2025. So how many houses have you guys built
So, we
in the last?
dedicated our 203rd house last night,
Wow.
which is pretty cool. She was a custodian at MISD.
Mhm.
And talk about keeping the lights on for so many people, the kids. Someone on our staff was very candid and shared the story of how much the custodian meant to her growing up. Because she said she looked up to the custodians, that they were so devoted to serving all the kids at a school,
Mm.
um, but a lot of times overlooked. They're usually there, but not everybody gives them the credit that they need. And so that was what we did last night. So 203,
Oh,
and that's in Midland and Odessa combined.
That's great.
Um, so we have a weird fiscal year. So
Okay.
I'll pretend like it's the calendar year. So this year our goal is 25 houses in Midland and Odessa. So we've got 6 weeks left to that. So we'll see where we are. But our dream is to kind of put ourselves out of business, which is kind of silly, not because we're doing something bad, but if we solve affordable housing in the Permian Basin, like
That would be
by all means, I'm great. Let's move on. It's probably a little outlandish, but um, West Texas is very, very different. Everybody here knows that. And we have the perfect storm of factors of people that care here, people that donate and are willing to do things. We've been fortunate to have two large companies give us large tracts of land to develop subdivisions, and that's basically unheard of. Like that does not happen across the board for my peers across the state in the U.S. And so we get that we're really fortunate here, but we also have the burden of doing the most we can with that. And so we're excited. We are scaling what we do in Odessa. We really want to build a lot of houses there. And so we're making some progress on that. And then Big Spring, we had someone give us land in Big Spring. Basically, all the towns around the Permian Basin are affected by house prices here. We don't really think about that. Um, so kind of our goal is once we get to a certain number in Odessa, we're going to head east a little bit and build some houses there.
so just expansion and more opportunity. I
I
love
think
that.
so. I mean,
Yeah.
truly, like it sounds cheesy. I would love to work myself out of a job. I don't know how realistic that is, but we want to build a lot of houses, and add to that number and see where we can go.
Love that. So part of the reason that we have you guys here is we want you to share some stories of success stories and maybe how you've partnered together. Stories about women that have come through Midland Fair Havens, and is there any specific ones that come to mind? And maybe you can take a stab at it, and then Joey take a stab at it, or you know.
Um, well, Joey knows, I'm sure, some of the stories of some of the past ones, but I'll share a very early resident who came to us. with a really hard life situation, and was fortunate to even be alive, and had a baby and a couple of children when she came to us, and we walked through a lot together because her story was pretty hard, and we contract with counselors, and she was going through the counseling, she was going through our training, actually pushed back a lot because she didn't want to fit in, she didn't want to be in a program, and it was a struggle for her to see that balance of um, needing the structure, needing the affirmation, and the direction of the counsel and the changes in her life. So, all that's to say, through some hard journeys and realizations for her, and clearly a spiritual battle as well, she eventually made some huge changes in her life and worked so hard to get through the program when she realized what
Yeah.
Midland for Havens was and how it could really impact her and her future and her children's future. And like Joey said, just really truly break those generational cycles. Um, she was all in and ended up with her 4-year degree in like 2.5 years. She just pushed through and worked so hard. First, of course, college attender in her family for generations, and eventually had the goal of a habitat house. So we worked together with her, and Joey mentioned the sweat equity. Her church came alongside of her, and a couple other churches came alongside of her to help provide the hours that were needed for her home. And she eventually became a homeowner. And for her, it was a miracle. I mean, for layers of ways, it was a miracle. Her life, her accomplishments, are having a home and giving back to the community then. She's had some jobs since then that truly put her on the other side of the desk, where she was working with individuals who had been in her shoes. And it was so precious for her to recount some of those experiences where someone would say, well, I've really had some hard things you wouldn't understand. And she could go, actually, I do. Let's compare notes. Let's talk, and I'll walk alongside of you, and I'll help you get to a place where I was able to get, and I understand. So it's been a remarkable journey for her. Not always easy,
Mhm.
just because someone moves into a home and because a homeowner doesn't mean everything's fixed now. So she's still working alongside of others to help as needed. And the good thing, I think, for all of us, we all have a journey. Um, Most people never really are fully aware of the person next to you's journey. We can't.
Absolutely.
Absolutely can't. And most of us aren't transparent enough about that history because in a way it is history. And we're here now, and that's what we tell our girls at Fair Havens. You're here now. Let's focus on where you want to be. That is part of your story, but it doesn't define you. And God is in that miracle work every day with each of us. And as we have our families come through each of our ministries, that's the message we want. Don't be held back with what's back there. Let's look forward. And we're here to help equip you to do that. And the story I was just telling you is a perfect example of one who could have easily been held in darkness in a very toxic life.
Situation.
Yes. And yet she chose, and we use a term at Fair Havens, it's not, but we've coined it from others. The freedom to choose. We all have the freedom to choose every day of our lives. We all face loss, results of choices that we go, "Why? I don't know how that just happened." And we have to wake up the next day and decide what we're going to do with that and have that freedom of choice to move forward. So she's one example of someone who's made a huge difference for herself, for her children and grandchildren to come, and anyone around her who sees what she did with her freedom to choose and how she made a difference. And she's now volunteering and doing things. And fun thing, we have one fundraiser a year, Gingerbread Haven.
Yes.
I think you've attended, and we need to get you to be an elf.
We'll see.
Yes. No,
You are a
have
house
to be.
builder, so it is a
That's
perfect.
true. Maybe I can do some
fundraiser.
consulting construction of the houses.
Yes.
That's right.
Sometimes they need that little extra glue to hold together. So
I can do that.
So the point is, now we have someone like this individual who came through the Fair Havens program, has gone through the Habitat program. She now comes as a guest and a supporter for our fundraiser. She buys a table and brings her children and friends. And that is just such a visual to what we're all trying to do
Mhm.
is help a person get to a place where they're giving back. They're volunteering. She has volunteered to help. Now she's donating. She's on truly
No.
um,
It's just full circle.
full
And the
circle.
fruit of the labor that
Yes.
people have invested in her through the years.
And that's what your
I love
podcast
that.
is about.
No, I love that.
that's
is
what
those
I,
stories.
if you stick with something long enough, it's what I learned in working in ministry. A lot of people who don't stick with it long enough, they don't really see the fruit of the labor. It's not that the
Yes.
fruit's not there. It's that you don't get to witness it.
Mhm.
When you've stuck with something long enough, you start seeing the fruits of the labor. And
Mhm.
I think that's when it really like, it all starts to come alive inside of it. Makes all that sweat equity, whatever that sweat equity is that we're putting into, right? It makes it all worth it.
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
that.
It's good.
So grateful.
What about you? Any stories
Well,
that you want to share?
I know exactly who you're talking about, and I didn't have the privilege of working with her as she built her house. I got to interview her, I think, a few years ago, and hear where she is now. And I don't think I've told you this. She's actually paid her house off.
Oh,
Wow.
So she graduated early. So, and I remember this was a few years ago. I wanted to hear her story. I knew that she had been through Fair Havens. And it was very transformational. I mean, and she's in the community serving daily, a job that is hard and underappreciated. Um, but I remember interviewing her and just hearing her talk about the program, um, and where she wanted to be. And at that point, she said, "I want to pay my house off early." And I didn't know if that would happen or not, but she has. She did. So I think it is a true testament. Like that's the fruit of all those seeds that y'all planted. I mean, y'all can tell how intensive Fair Havens is by how DiAnn's talking and the work that they do to invest in people. A lot of times when they come to us, they're not perfect by any means, but they've worked through life, especially the people that I can think of that we've worked with y'all on. They have overcome a lot. They're already on a really good path. We just give them kind of a tool in that tool belt to help get them there. They need a house. They, can't afford what the average price is, and so they do our program. And there's someone who is a little bit more recent who lights up the room every time she walks in, and I'm eager to see where she lands and what she does. She too is a huge servant. I mean, she um is truly doing work that is so challenging, and something that a lot of people probably don't want to do, and she does it with a smile and a little bit of attitude in a good way.
she had
But
that attitude at Fair Havens too.
it was a good attitude. She kept us on our
Understand.
toes, and
Yeah.
we love her. So it's fun to be on my side to see kind of the tail end of what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question kind of off the cuff. So in doing what Cindy and I do, we are talking to people in the community all day long and multiple conversations of just all sorts of things. But there seems to at times be a highly competitive spirit among some organizations that we're all competing against each other. And I love that you guys are collaborating with each other. There's true fruit that comes out of these collaborations of taking them from one step to the next step. And I'm sure there's even steps, maybe, I don't want to say below in the sense of like less than, but maybe even a safe place situation
Mhm.
where maybe they start out of being running from crisis and end up at safe place. I could imagine then maybe end up, hey, we need to get into
Yes.
a little bit more of a stable transition. And then, so I can imagine there's possibly even first or second steps that before they even get to Fairhaven. But what could you say to our community on the benefits of collaborating and working with each other and with other organizations versus competing against each other? Do you have any like words of wisdom that you could impart to anybody listening, that it's hard to not be in that competitive space? I'm highly competitive, but we're better together. Do y'all have any?
I don't sense the competitiveness. I
Oh,
don't
that's
know if you
good.
do or not, Joey. Um, and it's funny because we're talking about continuum of care now.
We're kind of talking about this.
Yeah.
Oh,
So 26 years ago, they just asked me to write a history of this. There's more to it than we won't get into, but there's a piece that you just kind of referred to. It's called Continuum of Care. And it essentially is where a person starts and where the goal is and where each of us fit in to that. And it's really a good tool for any community to have. We did not have that when Fairhaven started, but within a couple of years, I was privileged to be a part of helping create that for our community, which you bring in someone from the outside. So you have, no full awareness of any, and they do the whole whiteboard thing. You work for weeks and you create where your gaps are, where your needs are, who's doing what, and where the overlaps are, and where it's healthy and where it's too much, and all of that. And I think we're discussing kind of revisiting some of that at this time. But um, I've worked in two other communities in social service, and really, I haven't sensed the competitive spirit at all. I don't know, it's because I'm just nose down on what I'm doing and working cooperative with other people. Um, on occasion there's maybe a misunderstanding or misrepresentation. Those things happen
right.
because we're human beings. But I think for the most part, we are really under God's favor here, really blessed in Midland, with people that have come in with the heart for ministry,
Mm.
and we have donors that are really interested in genuine help and service, and volunteers who really want to jump in. And you're right, we're stronger together, and we just need to keep that focus. And I think, I know we're working too hard to think about what
I
else
know.
is going on out there, right?
Hmm.
And if there is something, usually it's like, okay, I'm not a part of that. Arm's length from that. I'm called to do this. We're going to focus on this.
Good. I love that. I think the whole, with every story and with every just, you know, interaction that you guys have had, you just see the joy of working together, but also just the joy of community, that each of these stories would not have happened without the donor. They wouldn't have happened without the
Right.
volunteer. They wouldn't have happened
Exactly.
without the leadership of you guys both being willing to say yes, and for maybe what you thought was a short season, but ended up as a long season. So, but just to see the beauty of different people that, Leslie and I, we, when I named Every Neighbor, 2.5 years ago, it was very much with the belief that every neighbor has value and they bring value to our community. And I think we have to find our place in that, what we're passionate about, what skill set we have, whether we can paint well or not. But what drives us, and
Yes.
what is it that people can be a part of individually or as an organization, an employee, a church, a business that wants to empower people to do good things. And so
Mhm.
I love it that both of you probably didn't plan on it, but that's how it ends up. And that's what does make us stronger. Um, so I wish that we could go on. There's several other things I'd love to ask, but one of the things that we kind of have a little bit of an impromptu surprise is I love quotes. Um, and it's just we're going to ask you to pull a quote out,
Oh.
read it out loud, and respond to it however you want to
Okay.
respond. And it's been interesting.
Okay.
Just I think I'm gonna hit the microphone here.
Any quote.
Any quote,
Any quote.
any quote.
Joey's like,
Lot to choose
"Mm."
from.
Just choose.
Yes, a lot to choose from.
I typed all those.
Kudos. Okay. You want to
read it?
share it? Yeah.
Trust that when the answer is no, there's a better yes.
That's crazy that you got that after you just said
Yes.
the yeses and the nos. I love that.
Yes.
Oh,
So you want me to elaborate on this?
yeah. Elaborate.
Um, okay. One of the early remembrances I have from a resident that came into the program, she looked at me and said, why are you doing this? What is your motivation? Why did you bring me into this program? Why did you tell me, yes, I can do this? She said, I've never trusted anybody that just does that. She'd always been in a cycle of prostitution, trafficked, and abused by family members and others since she was like 4. And she thought there was always a payback. What is it that I wanted? Why did I tell her? Yes. And so I guess how this ties in to that is she finally said no to what she'd been doing. And God gave her a yes. And I said, the only reason I'm doing this is because God called me to do this. I don't know how else to explain it. And I'm not doing it in my flesh and spirit and power. I'm doing it in
Lord,
the love of Jesus
that's awesome.
comes through.
I love that.
So, and a few days ago, in reading something, 3 words came to me, and I keep thinking them throughout. And they came to me today as I'm just sitting here. That God gives us, we have to trust Him because there's a lot of no's in life. As we wait for these yeses, for His peace, for His provision, and for His purpose. And I think for volunteers, for donors, for those of us that are in nonprofit work or for profit work, we need to really lean into what those 3 very simple words mean. And the longer we live, I think the more we depend on things like that.
Yeah.
And another reason, and I think we do things that we do is just our purpose.
Mhm.
When I had a few years as a widow, I was so grateful I had this career. Back when I told people I'd just get them started and I wouldn't keep doing it, I had the realization that it was more purposeful than I realized. It was
Amen.
part of His peace, His provision, and His purpose for me as I was raising children. And then as I was a widow. And now
Love that.
married again, of course, just
I love that.
in your journeys.
Yeah.
And how beautiful that the strength of your yes was also the strength of her no,
Yes, correct.
because
said.
your yes was needed and her no was needed. And I love that.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay. So Joey, what
So
about
how
you?
am I supposed to follow that up?
Yeah,
Diane?
That was really good.
Mine is today be the reason someone smiles.
Mm.
And I think back to last night, like I think there's two parts of our program that are always really defining points in people's lives. And so the first one is when you apply, there's a process to apply, but we try to be as creative as we can to tell people that they've been accepted into the program. And that's looked a lot of different ways. But it's a really big deal. Obviously, they're just starting the program. So they're not buying a house that day, but it's such a big deal. Sometimes people apply for our program a few times before they actually get accepted. So it's a big deal. So that's one thing. I always see so much joy and emotion because it means so much to those people. This is kind of the beginning of something very special for them. And then probably more so than that, when they finish the program before we close on the house, we have a dedication. So that's when your friends and your family get together around the front of the house. We have confetti cannons we shoot off. They're huge. It's a lot of fun and big ribbons. But we always have the new homeowners tell their story, why they couldn't just go buy a house, why they needed this program. A lot of times they share some of their challenges, what they've overcome to get there, and it is so meaningful to get to see that. So I'm not sure that that's a smile in that sense, but it is the most fun part of my job is getting to hear those homeowners usually be an example for their kids. They're almost all single moms with kids. We'll sell to everybody, but it's typically that. And it means so much to those kids to get to see their mom fight through their struggles and challenges to become a homeowner. So that's what I think of with smiles.
I love it. Yeah, it's so good.
That's good.
Thank you guys both for just sharing and being with us. And I really do hope that your stories and just the information that we've talked about and the people involved will inspire other people in our region to not only give, but to volunteer time, to maybe refer someone that they know. I mean, there's so many facets of just we want to continue sharing the good work that's happening in our region and hopefully when people take hold of that there's action behind it. That's what we don't want to just listen to good stories. We want to do as well. And so thank you for being willing to come on and share with us, and we appreciate you being here. So
Thank
Thank you.
you all for what you do. And thank you, Cindy, for having the
Thank you.
foresight and the dream to help this come to fruition
Thank you.
because it does help people be a part of the stories.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you connecting
Thank
people
you.
with the stories
I
enriches
appreciate that.
lives on both sides. So thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much for what you
Thank
do.
you.